Taoiseach, the landslide in Donegal resulting from the construction of a wind farm really is a shocking reminder of the failure of the government to take seriously what happens when the development of renewable energy is in the hands of private developers who only care about profit and don't give a hoot about the environment. And of course, this is not the first time we've seen this sort of shocking environmental damage resulting from the failure to do proper environmental impact assessment with projects like this. Because, of course, earlier this year we were forced to pay €5 million in fines, and we are currently paying €15,000 a day in fines as a result of the Derry Bryan landslide in 2003 and the ruling subsequently of the European Court of Justice that we had failed, that the developers, the ESB at that time, also building a wind farm on a mountain after cutting down the trees that actually hold mountains together, something basic piece of knowledge about the relationship of trees and forestation to holding mountains and soil together, that was just ignored, causing a massive landslide, and we are paying €15,000 a day in fines. We still haven't rectified the matter, and now it happens again in Donegal, right? This is what happens when you put something as important as dealing with climate change, the development of renewable energy in the hands of private developers or people who are driven for profit. So what are you going to do about that? And where are the directly employed ecologists, foresters, all the people who will actually do the environmental impact assessment work for the state to ensure this sort of disastrous situation doesn't occur again?
Just to his point of clarity, I have no issue with campaigning or campaigns. But I'm always reminded when Deputy Barry was elected in 2016 through the chair, he made a very clear statement of his philosophy, and he said that there's a saying in Paris, that which Parliament does, the street undoes. And that sums up the difference in our philosophy. I'm a committed parliamentarian, and I believe in parliamentary democracy. I get the sense that any issue that emerges at all, there's an orchestration to use that issue to build a support base, an electoral support base to undermine the government of the day. That's the way politics works, and that's the way it has worked, and that's what you're at. And so when it comes to even a relatively, in the overall scheme of things, you instanced correctly the War of Independence has been a campaign, but when you compare that to whether or not we have replaced the RTE licence fee with a charge, that's the point I'm getting. You'll still believe that that becomes a big unjust tax and you'll have a big campaign around it and a big protest. The point is Parliament and decision makers have to make decisions. And on climate change, you will again oppose everything that will be about getting our carbon emissions down. Yes, you will. And you will do everything you possibly can to resist what the Green Party, what this government have proposed in different iterations. And the Oireachtas committee, for example, in the last Dáil, a majority of parties decided on a course of action to try and reduce and that did involve a carbon tax, for example, and to utilise that money to protect on fuel poverty, but also to deal with retrofitting, and also to deal with alternative farming, so that you can increase and enhance our biodiversity on our farms, and recalibrate the agricultural performance in rural Ireland. But that all gets opposed, and then becomes the subject matter of another campaign. And the bottom line is this: we are running out of time. And trying to get to 2050 will be in itself an enormous challenge. And as we discovered during our programme for government discussions, trying to get down 7%, for example, on an average 7% over the next 10 years, is going to be very, very challenging over the next decade. But we are committed to doing it as a government. And the climate change bill is a good bill. And I think it has a whole range of commitments there. And it does establish a 2050 emissions target. It does introduce a system of successive 5-year economy-wide carbon budgets starting in 2021. It will strengthen the role of the Climate Change Advisory Council in proposing carbon budgets. It introduces a requirement to annually review the Climate Action Plan and prepare a national long-term climate action strategy at least every decade. And introduces a requirement for all local authorities to prepare individual climate action plans, which will include both mitigation and adaptation measures. and it gives a stronger oversight role for the Oireachtas through an Oireachtas committee. Now, I would invite the deputies to support that endeavour. And in relation to the points that were asked earlier, I think Deputy Nash asked, would there be amendments forthcoming? The Minister has gone through the pre-legislative stage. At committee, the Minister will consider any amendments that come from the House, and he will do so in a constructive manner in terms of and his main aim is to improve the bill if people come forward with workable improvements that advance. But I think the bill in itself is a major advance on what we've had before, and it's something that commends itself to the House. And again, he is open, of course, given the detailed examination that has taken place, and members may come in the House may come forward on that. In relation to the Climate Data Centre, I will have a look at that. I'll talk to Minister Ryan in relation to that. I would accept the extraordinarily valuable work that it does and the large record-based database that it has. You know, I'm very keen to work on similar initiatives to the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan and to work on a whole range of biodiversity projects on an all-island basis. And I've made that clear to our colleagues in Northern Ireland and in the Northern Ireland Executive in respect of developing joint approaches to the environment, to the climate, and we're looking as part of the Shared Island unit is the creation of a dialogue on an all-island approach to climate change, to the challenges that protecting the environment, you know, present to society, and particularly in terms of protecting biodiversity on our island. I think that's important. In relation to Dublin Zoo, yes, the government has moved quickly to try and deal with the crisis that the zoo and Fota Wildlife Park and others are currently experiencing. My department has now decided to work with other government departments, the OPW, Minister Donovan, Minister O'Brien, and the Department of Housing and the Environment, and Minister Noonan, and indeed other departments at the Taoiseach's office to try and work out a more strategic approach to our zoos and a more sustainable situation for them, particularly given the impact of COVID-19 on their operations, which has been very, very significant indeed. Basically, Dublin Zoo could have up to 1 million visitors a year. That now hasn't happened, principally because of COVID. Their revenue base has been undermined very significantly. So we're very conscious of that. We wanted to intervene this week to make sure that we could deal with the current crisis, but we are very committed to helping out on a more medium-term basis. In terms of Deputy Boyd Barrett's point in Donegal, like, there will be the use of private development in terms of wind projects. It won't all be done by the state, as you know that and the next big wave in relation to wind energy will be offshore wind, in my view, and that's why the Marine Development Bill is so important. It's a very important piece of legislation because it opens up the opportunity to really develop the economic potential of our seas for the betterment of our people. And I think wind energy is very important in terms of the climate change agenda.